Okay, this is week 23 of popular culture, and the topic will be about the Olympics and the Winter Olympics. So the men's competed, and they have found, or the three people for Team USA are Nathan Chen, Jason Brown, and Vincent Zhou, but we will be talking about Nathan Chen because he got first place. So there are three world titles. He had three world titles, 18, 19, and 2021, and six US titles from 2017 to 2022. And he has three Grand Prix final crowns from 2017 to 2019. He's a Yale student during skating break, and he majors in statistics and data science. And he's the first skater to have landed five types of quadruple jumps in competitions, from toe loop, southpaw, loop, flip, and lutz. And those that I just listed are jumps. Nathan Chen is also the world record holder for the free skate and the combined score, and he became the youngest novice champion in the history of US figure skating at age 10. He also won the national title at the 2010 US Championships in Spokane, Washington.
So I will be talking about one woman award winner who is called Karen Chen. And also she's an American figure skater. So basically she competed at the 2018 Olympics, placing 11th. And she has also competed at seven ISU championships, achieving her best result fourth at two world championships, which are in 2017 and 2021 respectively. Her fourth place finish at the 2021 World Championships helped Team USA get three women's spots in Beijing. And also, Chen began learning to skate in 2005. She won gold on the national intermediate level in 2011, and then she got competed as a beginner in 2012.
Okay, these are the pairs. So one of the pairs that is going to be on the 2022 US Olympic figure skating team is Alexa Knierim and Brandon Frazier. And Alexa was born on June 10th, 1991. Brandon was born on November 19th, 1992. Together, they are the 2021 US National Champion and the 2020 Skate American Champion. And due to their shared work ethic and commitment to open and honest communication, they were able to accelerate far in their career. This is ice dance team. So ice dance is another section of Winter Olympics from Madison Shook and Evan Bates. So national champions of ice dance and the US figure skating champions. This is their third Olympics together, and Bates also competed at the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics with then partner Emily Sampson, and would now become the first US skater of any discipline to compete in 4 Winter Olympics. They are a podium contender and also are in a relationship off ice. This is another ice dancer or the other two, which is Madison Hubell and Zachary Donahue, and the second one is Caitlin Howitt and Jean Luc Baker. So Madison and Zachary have second place in US Figure Skating Championships, and this is their second Olympics. They're podium contenders, and they're the only team in the world to medal at the past 3 World Championships. They got silver in 2018 and 2021, and bronze in 2019. Their US titles came in 2018, 2019, and 2021. And they have been in the top 4 at all 11 of their national championships together. Caitlin and Jean-Luc Baker, this is their Olympic debut, and they are 25 and 28 respectively, and they won both the US and World Junior titles in 2014 and have been top 5 in the US 8 years in a row ever since moving up to senior ranks in 2015, taking the bronze medal the past 4 years. And this is our bibliography. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone, welcome to this week of history. Today we'll begin our early modern Europe unit, and this is the first lesson, which is the beginning of the Renaissance. So first is a quick review from our medieval Europe unit about what is the Renaissance. So the Renaissance is a European ideological and cultural movement from the 14th to 17th century. After the 11th century, with the recovery and development of the economy, the rise of cities, and the improvement of living standards, people gradually changed their pessimistic attitude towards real life and began to pursue the fun of secular life. These tendencies are contrary to Catholicism. In Italy, where the urban economy was prosperous in the 14th century, there was a resistance to Catholic culture. At the time, Italian citizens and secular intellectuals extremely hated the status of Catholicism and its hypocrisies. On the other hand, because there was no mature cultural system to replace it, they expressed their cultural ideas in the form of reviving ancient Greece and Roman cultures. Therefore, the Renaissance emphasized a new culture that takes the classics, which refers to Greek and Rome, as its teacher. So here's a comparison between the ideology of from the medieval and the Renaissance. On the left are medieval arts. You could see it's mostly portraying religious figures. It's usually dull colored, and sometimes the proportions are pretty off. On the right are some pretty bright colored, with proper proportions, paintings of non-religious scenes. So what makes them different? During the medieval time, paintings usually have dull facial expression, no sense of space, no perspective, dull color, flat, distorted face and body. They look weird in general. They have strange hairstyle, very few people presented, and they lack shade. The Renaissance paintings have lively facial expression, strong perspective, higher saturation or contrast, which means the colors are brighter and there's more variety of color. There's brighter color, it's more detailed, it has more emphasis on the human figure, and more people are presented. It also has an emphasis on shading.
Um, so so inspired by the art, we can see how medieval and Renaissance are different. So medieval arts are strongly influenced by the religious belief. Religion at the time emphasized asceticism, which is to limit, control, and suppress your desire, even simple emotions like happiness or delightment. And as a result, the facial expressions portrayed on the artworks are often dull and stiff, since medieval church doesn't allow people to pursue their own interest, desire. Um, Artworks usually use scholarly backgrounds. Usually use scholarly backgrounds because they're religious, and that's why medieval art looks strange. And during the Renaissance, people call the splendor of the Roman and Greek, like they recall the splendor of the Roman and Greek art. They focused back on individuals, picking up art concepts like human body, muscles, shapes, figures, perspectives, colors, which form the basis of modern realistic art. So we're gonna introduce some famous people. Um, so the first is the most famous, Leonardo da Vinci. The Leonardo da Vinci is one one of the most famous painter and inventor in the world. He's best known for The Last Supper and Mona Lisa, um, which are two paintings around the world. He also drew designs and sketches of helicopters, tanks, parachutes, even a calculator. So so actually his designs are really cool, and he really likes the design with a circle. So because I've read some of his design of the helicopter or tanks, and but however his design actually doesn't really work like his circle tank or circle helicopter. They're just fantasies. And all of these inventions came hundreds years after his death, even though his designs were very accurate and achievable. Unfortunately, like it's not really practical in the in the application in real life. So the inventions I talk here is the actual inventions that can be used in the real life. And then Da Vinci's work had a huge impact on other artists during the Renaissance because of his realistic style and sketches of the human body. For example, the Vitruvian Man is one of his most famous sketches, and it shows the ideal Renaissance man and his proportional body parts. And then the second person we're gonna introduce is Nicholas Copernicus. Copernicus was a scientist and astronomer in Germany. He is most famous for developing the heliocentric system. Um, okay, he he's most famous for developing the heliocentric system, which said that the planets revolved around the sun. So heliocentric is made up by it has the word helio, which means the sun in I think it's Greek or Latin languages. And at the time, most people believed that all planets orbited around the Earth, but this was not true because as we know now, the all the planets in the solar system orbits around the sun, and his idea wasn't accepted, and the Catholic Church banned his idea. His theory also helped Galileo and other scientists to develop his model of the solar system. Eventually, the Copernican belief became widely accepted in society, but actually he was executed by the Catholic Church in a very brutal way or inhumane way, and because he wasn't accepted because his idea shaped the rule of Catholic Church.
Next up, we have the Medici family. During the start of the Renaissance, Florence in Italy was a major city that was impacted. One rich family was the Medici, and they were able to become really rich because they were really famous bakers and they did commerce inside the city. They were able to impact the Renaissance by bringing four important popes: Leo X, Clement VII, PS4, and Leo VI. And these popes were able to mingle with many of the Europe's royal blood, and the family got more and more powerful because with this royal blood, they created more family line, and they all shared the Medici blood, and they were also able to create many banking technology and were able to help Florence become a hotspot for the Renaissance. They were also able to help Michelangelo to help create the High Renaissance, and the last Medici rule ended in 1737, and the family legacy had over 300 years.
Can I just add something about this? So during the Renaissance, there was a huge influx of art and literature, and a good reason behind that are these families of patrons like the Medici. So these patrons were really, really important. And in Florence, for example, the Medici basically controlled everything. They were essentially the government, and they founded and supported a lot of the famous artists like Botticelli and I'm not sure if Michelangelo, maybe Michelangelo too. Oh yeah, Michelangelo. Okay, and so for the intro to the Renaissance, this is a modern period of history that is often considered to have begun with the Renaissance. It immediately followed the period in Europe known as the Middle Ages, and it began in Italy during the 14th century and reached its height in the 15th. By the 16th and 17th centuries, it had spread to the rest of Europe. The word Renaissance means rebirth, and it refers to the rediscovery of scholars called humanists to the classical writings, which are those of the ancient Greeks and Romans. In fact, the Renaissance was a period of discovery in many fields and of new scientific laws, new forms of art and literature, new religious and political ideas, and new lands, including America. Nevertheless, the fuller appreciation of the writings, arts, and attitudes of the Greeks and Romans were perhaps what represents the period. Some Greek and Roman writers have been read throughout the Middle Ages, but much classical literature was unknown. The humanists began to search in the libraries of monasteries for manuscripts that had lain there for hundreds of years. They wanted to study and copy them.
So Dante was a famous writer that wrote the Divine Comedy in Italian instead of Latin. And it was basically called the glimmer of dawn of the Renaissance period. Petrarch was also another famous figure. And he was responsible for the ideology of humanism, which was one of the central ideas of the Renaissance, which was shifting basically from the focus of religion to the human self. And he was also an initiator in the field of literature and learning. He wrote a lot of sonnets, which is a type of poetry in Italian. And he also aroused classical antiquity from its long winter sleep and gave direction to the talents of hundreds of others. So his ideology inspired movements across northern and southern Italy, with other people writing books similar to his humanist ideas. And like Dante, he was a citizen in Florence, which was the most prosperous city-state in Italy, and the Athens of Italy. And they both spent most of their lives in forced or involuntary exile. And the Laura to whom Petrarch's sonnets were addressed was the Lady of Avignon of France, whose memories he cherished for many years after she died of the Black Death in 1348. In parallel to this awakening of the human intellect was a great development in the fine arts. So as you guys saw in the previous slides, the art style from in the Renaissance period was significantly different from the art and painting in the medieval area. And as we discussed earlier, after centuries of the stiff symbolic representation of especially religious symbolism, artists began studying nature itself and to work from the living model. So Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man shows how artists began sketching the human body instead of making sketches of heaven or Jesus. And new ideas of grace and harmony and beauty were gained from these sculptures and other artistic remains of classical Greece and Rome. And what also came was the discovery of better technical methods of execution of the laws of perspective and the process of painting in oil. So before that, the painting techniques were more simple. And during the Renaissance period, many of the famous painters began developing more advanced ways of painting and also adding specific oils in their paintings so that they could be preserved for longer. And so the result from this was that the art of painting burst into a glory previously unknown, and the sculptures and architect rivaled that of the ancient days.
So here, as you can see on the bottom right corner, is the School of Athens, which is a quite famous painting. It was painted by Raphael. It represents an imaginary meeting of Plato and Aristotle in ancient Greece, at the center with all other philosophers from all periods of history. Notice the use of perspective in this painting. The building So yeah, basically it's kind of different from before when everything is off scale and it doesn't actually look right. In this case, it actually looks pretty clear. And on the left is a church that was built in the standard Renaissance style. And that's the end of today. Next week, we'll be exploring the other aspects of the Renaissance in a bit more detail. And thank you for watching.
Okay, so this week for biology tutoring, we're going to be covering the life cycles of the frog and the butterfly. So first, to just touch on the life cycle of a frog, a life cycle refers to the overall stages of an animal while it's alive, and a life cycle repeats itself for each generation in a species. So specifically for the frog, in each of the 5 stages, the frog grows and changes in different ways. So the first stage is the egg. So the frogs will lay the eggs. And in fact, a female frog can lay up to 4,000 eggs at a time. And they have to lay their eggs in still water. So within 1 to 3 weeks, the eggs will hatch and become into tadpoles. In stage 2, they will become tadpoles as seen in the picture. A tadpole then hatches from the egg, and tadpoles live in water and have gills to help them breathe. Tadpoles have no legs and have to swim around in order to eat and survive. And they also eat only vegetation algae, so they're considered herbivores. So stage 3 is the froglet, and after 6 to 9 weeks, the tadpole begins to develop and grows lungs and hind legs. The froglet cannot jump around and swim. The froglet still has a very long tail attached to it. Stage 4 is the young frog. So the froglet now has 2 front legs and the tail shrinks even shorter, and the tail is used for nutrients for the young frog to grow. The froglet then now grows into a young frog and can live on dry land, but it's still very small. As the last stage is the adult frog. So the frog tail now disappears and it eats small insects. The young frog has to grow from 2 to 4 years till it becomes an adult frog. And the adult frog will follow the same life cycle as it lays eggs.
Life cycle of butterfly includes 4 stages. It says 5 steps on the slides, but it's actually 4 big stages. It's typo. There's egg, caterpillar, chrysalis, and adult butterfly. Depending on the type of butterfly, the life cycle of butterfly may take anywhere from 1 month to a whole year. Next slide, please. Stage 1 is egg. Some butterfly egg may be round or oval, and their color may be yellow, white, green, or other shades, and some may be red, bumpy, or smooth. The egg features depending on the species of butterfly that lays their egg. Inside this tiny egg, the caterpillar grow, and the time it takes for the egg to hatch varies. In some species, they will hatch in a few weeks. Next slide, please. And stage 2 is caterpillar, also known as larva. And when the egg hatches, the caterpillar will start its work and eat the leaf they were born onto. And this is really important because the mother butterfly needs to lay her egg on the type of leaf that caterpillar will eat. And each caterpillar type likes only certain types of leaves. Next slide. And stage 3 is chrysalis. And as soon as the caterpillar is done growing and they have reached their full length and weight, they form themselves into a chrysalis, also known as pupa. Caterpillars are short, stubby, and have no wings at all. And the last stage is adult butterfly. And when the caterpillar is done with forming and changing inside the chrysalis, adult butterfly will emerge. And when the butterfly first emerges, it's not time for takeoff just yet, as the wings are at first wet, soft, and wrinkled against its body. And the butterfly waits for its wings to dry and get to fly. That is.
So hello, for this week, we're going to be discussing organic chemistry. So this is going to start tying a little bit into biology. So if you learn the biology course, you'll be able to see some stuff that you might have already learned in biology. So first, what is organic chemistry and what is the difference of organic chemistry and normal chemistry? So organic chemistry is like part of chemistry. So it deals with all of carbon containing compounds. And organic chemistry is a study of the structure, property, composition, reactions, and preparation of carbon containing compounds. So organic chemistry deals with like everything with carbon. And in organic chemistry, the most important thing is to know the organic molecules, which we'll be discussing today. So the organic molecules are molecules with carbon in them. And because we are humans, we tend to learn organic chemistry based on like what happens inside the human body a little more. So we're going to go over some major carbon containing compounds next. So they're called macromolecules. There's 4 of them. You might remember a little bit from biology. First, we're going to go over carbohydrates. So carbohydrates basically is in rice, it's in bread, it's in sugar. So we eat it a lot. So as we looked earlier, the definition of organic chemistry involves the one word structure. This is what we're going to go over today. So if you look at carbohydrates, they're always a carbon chain that's like bent, like the one on the bottom. So here it's like the O here is not connected over here. It's just a chain, but it's bent into a shape of a hexagon. So we call it a carbon ring. And then it usually has oxygens, which are the O's, and then hydrogens, which are the H that are happening around it. Carbohydrates usually can dissolve in water. That's something to notice. Proteins. So proteins are made up of thousands of smaller structures called amino acids. So the basic structure of a protein is a carbon in the middle connected to what's called an R group. And then to the right is a carboxyl group, which is a C to an O to an O to an H. And then the other side is an N to an H to an H to an H. So in proteins, there are carbons, not as many as you would find in lipids, which we will mention later, and carbohydrates, which you mentioned earlier, but there are some. Proteins help with building tissues and muscles, helping out with our immune system and produce hormones. Yeah.
Next, oh wait. Okay. Next are lipids, and they are fats. They are made with a carbon chain with hydrogens coming out from it, and they do not dissolve in water. And lastly, there are nucleic acids. They are the DNA and RNA in our bodies. They have carbon sugar rings, pentagon or 5 carbons, and they are dissolvable in water.
Okay, that's the end of our today lesson. Thank you, everyone.